Hey guys, welcome back to the tennis vlog for Wimbledon. Now, quite typically, I've already had my first internet disruption, so bear with if this buffers from time to time. Worst Wi-Fi in the world, as I often say. But hopefully it holds out enough for us to get through this preview and prediction of a match that could be really interesting. I've said already, if you'd have told me that this was going to be the final two players at the beginning of the fortnight, I'd have thought, great, finally, an easy major final prediction, Barty in straight sets. It's not that simple anymore as we take a look at the paths of both players to the final and some of the numbers as well. I know that some of you are here live and it's a fairly small number at the moment. I don't expect it to get too much higher. I'm sorry for scheduling this stream quite late on. I didn't know when or if I'd have the time to do it, but something's better than nothing. And I know a lot of people like to check in after the match anyway, just to see how good or bad the call. So not judging for that. And we're going to get into it as we usually do. We're going to look at the paths of both players to date, the matches that they've come through, some of the key factors in both of them coming through their semi-finals and making this stage. And then we're going to take a look ahead to the final that will be played within the next couple of hours and see who has the best shot at coming out on top. And I will make a call, which is what a lot of you are here for, I'm sure. So let's kick off with the ranked player. Let's go for Karolina Pliskova, who's currently right outside the top 10, but is seeded at number 8 and spent a lot of the 5-6 years inside that top 10. She's been a really consistent at the top. So Pliskova, seeded 8, and it has to be said, it's not the road to a major final that Pliskova has come through. Credit to her, she owned it. She's only dropped a set, and that was in her most recent round. So let's take it from square one. Round, she beat Tamara Zidanšek, semi-finalist at the recent French Open, 7-5, 6-4. And then she had her win over Donna Vekic in the second round. Now, Vekic is a good grass court player, gets some of her best results on this surface. It's the surface she tends to be the most comfortable on. 6-2, 6-2 for Pliskova. So I think that's the match that really flagged her up as one to watch, because anyone who watches Pliskova and watches the women's tour will know that Pliskova has had that high ranking because of her consistency across the board. But when it comes to Grand Slams, she is generally upset in the first few rounds. As far as recent events go, it would be surprising at this point to see her in the semi-finals. She used to be a more regular presence there, and she's looking to change that. So Martinkova in the third round, a fellow Czech, Pliskova winning that one 6-3, 6-3. And then Ludmila Samsonova in the fourth round. Now, Samsonova had won a title on grass courts coming into this. I think she was given a wild card as well. So she was a little bit of a dark horse opponent. She had the potential to cause trouble. Pliskova having none of it, 6-2, 6-3 in that fourth round match, taking her into the quarterfinals where she took on Victoria Golubic. Now, that as a draw for a Grand Slam quarterfinal, you're taking that, and take it. Pliskova did 6-2, 6-2, once again just dropping a handful of games, again big serving numbers, and that set her up nicely for her semi-final meeting with number 2 seed Aryna Sabalenka. Now, once again, as ferociously as Sabalenka was playing coming into this match, I think Pliskova would definitely have taken that matchup over either Angelique Kerber or Ashleigh Barty on the other side of the draw. Sabalenka is a lot more straightforward in terms of what you're going up against. She goes for broke, essentially, as she did to get to the semi-finals. That was one of the most impressive performances I've seen, really, from Sabalenka in the quarters. The way she was going after every single ball with such ferocity, but great margin for error as well, from the return to the second ball, just absolutely knowing what she wanted and keeping her focus straight and her energy positive. It was really good stuff from her, which made it a tough one to call against Pliskova. But really, Pliskova's serve and her demeanor and her play on the back foot had the final say. So it was 5-7, 6-4, 6-4 for Pliskova to get the upset and move into her first Wimbledon final. And I have to commend her for some of the stuff she did in that match, because if I'm honest, I've played Pliskova down in recent years. I really rated her in her early days and when she was just starting to break through. There was a lot to like about her game, you know, the flatness of the shot, the good power. She had a decent backhand slice. She was comfortable around the net. But the longer time has gone on and the closer she's got to these big titles and the more she's struggled to get across the line, it's been a little bit more difficult to see her going places, particularly when you consider how she struggles with movement. And I mean, it's such a key part of the game. You can't win any number of matches in a row if you're not getting balls back in play. And credit to Pliskova, I think this is potentially the best I've ever seen her play, or recently anyway, on the back foot. The number of balls she was able to send back to Sabalenka, generally because her anticipation was getting much better as the match moved on. She was getting a good idea of where Sabalenka was going with the cross-court forehand approach, and that gave her time on the ball to redirect it. But the big numbers for Pliskova all tournament have been that serve. She hit 14 aces in that last match. She was winning 78% of her first serve points, and throughout the tournament, that percentage of first serves won has really been around the 70s, 80s mark for Pliskova. So she has been a real force to be reckoned with there. There were some points of note that raised some question marks going into the final. She had ample opportunities to break serve in that first set, and credit to Sabalenka, she thumped down those serves. She made life really difficult for Pliskova in those situations. But Pliskova faced one break point in the entirety of that opener. That break point was a set point, and she double faulted. What does that say about her mentally? Will it cost her in the final? We'll take a little bit of a look at that further on. But all in all, Pliskova has already outplayed my expectations for her during the fortnight, and I think probably for a number of other people as well. I was really impressed with how she stayed on track mentally after the disappointing lot of that loss, even of that opening set against Sabalenka. And she's definitely one to watch going into the final, and someone that Ashleigh Barty should not downplay and not underestimate. And with the respect that Barty has for opponents across the board, she won't be doing that. So it's the only player in this final a Grand Slam title to her name. She won the French Open in 2019, where she beat Marketa Vondrousova in straight sets. But grass is where it's at for Barty, always has been, and this is the title that she desperately wants. Does she have the form to get there? We'll see. Right, let's have a look at her path to date. So first round was a win over Carla Suarez Navarro. Suarez Navarro, inspirational player, has come through a battle with cancer, was back on court for her final match at Wimbledon, as it turned out to be. Now, Barty dropped a set there. That raised early warnings for me when it came to Barty, because that's a match that she should definitely have won in straight sets. She wobbled and played a poor tiebreak, as much as Suarez Navarro used the length of the court well and the shorter angles to pull Barty around. That's a match that Barty should have come through more straightforwardly, but in a similar fashion to Pliskova, who steadied the ship against Sabalenka, she was still able to come through pretty comprehensively in the sets either side. So 6-1, 6-1, 6-7, 6-1 for Barty on that occasion. Second round, 6-4, 6-3 over Anna Blinkova, so got back on track nicely. And since that first round, she hasn't dropped a set. So it was 6-3, 7-5 over Katerina Siniakova, and 7-5, 6-3 over Siniakova's doubles partner and recent French Open champion Barbora Krejcikova. Now, two players there that have a lot in their repertoire and the ability to move Barty around the court. Tactically, Krejcikova in patches played Barty really well, tried to get on top of her. So it's very good for Barty that strategically she was able to work her way through those matches without dropping a set, without getting frustrated, without really letting her own level drop too much. So Barty coming through both those matches against the Czechs in straight sets. And then she moved on to Ayla Tomljanovic in the quarterfinals and just steamrolled 6-1, 6-3. Tough for Tomljanovic. It was a tough turnaround for her in that match. But even tougher is when you have to go up against a countrywoman who just has more going on in her game than you. Tomljanovic was left without options in that match. Barty was really in pretty firm control, serving well under pressure, which has been a theme for Barty, not just throughout this tournament, but throughout the last couple of years. It's been a huge thing, the way she's able to find her spots with such unpredictability when she has her back against the wall, and that can be frustrating for opponents because they have chances but can't push through on them. And that rose again when she took on the number 25 seed, Angelique Kerber, in the semis. So Pliskova has faced just one seeded opponent to date. Barty's faced two, Krejcikova, the number 14 seed, and Kerber, who obviously is a former champion here. She won the title in 2018, 3 years ago, how time flies. And honestly, Kerber was looking one of the most informed, if not the most informed player of the tournament. She was going to be a very tough opponent, and I think that helped Barty mentally because the respect that she had for Kerber and Kerber's level meant that she didn't get tight. And that has been an issue for Barty in recent years, even in recent matches this year when she's had a winnable opportunity in front of her and she has seized up. And she didn't fold in the latter stages against Krejcikova, and she didn't let the occasion or the nerves get to her against Kerber. So it was 6-3, 7-6. That first set is as good as the first set as you're going to see from Barty, really finding her marks with the forehand, comfortable on serve, focused, great use of the backhand slice. I mean, we know the repertoire that Barty possesses. She has everything, essentially, and she put everything out on court to stop Kerber's momentum there. Kerber got going in the second set. She started to use the shorter angles more effectively to get Barty on the stretch, particularly on the forehand side. You do not want to let her line up for that forehand. And Kerber did a good job of moving her around the court. But when push came to shove, Barty was brilliant. Broke to love as Kerber was serving for the set, and then played by far the cleaner tiebreak to come through in straight sets. Really impressive to me, because if there was a moment where Barty was going to get tight and where she was going to feel the moment, it was there, and she didn't, which makes it really interesting heading into the final, because Barty has had mixed fortunes in final. She lost in finals, even. Can't speak English today. She lost the most recent one she played on clay courts against Arina Sabalenka at a premiere event a few weeks back. That was in 3 sets. So Pliskova knows that Barty is not untouchable at this stage, and Barty has been long pursuing this Wimbledon title. It's a tournament that she knows full well that she's capable of winning. She favors the lawns above any other surface. They work well for Pliskova as well with her big serve. There's a lot of interesting points to weigh up on this one, but before we do so, let's have a look at the head-to-heads and then have a talk about the strategy that might be utilized and the things that might play out in the final. So, just going to make sure that this is still rolling. Yeah, we're all good. My lighting's a little weird today, but it's fine. We can roll with it. Head-to-head, it is in the favor of Ashleigh Barty, top seed. She leads it 4-2 at WTA level events, but they also had a meeting way back in 2012 on the ITF circuit, which Barty also won. So technically 5-2 to Barty, but let's just have a look at the WTA, because that's the stuff that really would have the most bearing. 4-2 in victories to Barty. Now, it was Pliskova that won their only meeting on grass so far at WTA level, and it was the first meeting at that WTA stage for these players. It was in Nottingham in 2016. It was a quarterfinal, and I was there, courtside. I still remember portions of it. As someone asked me 2 or 3 years ago now what the best women's tennis match I've ever seen live is, and I named this match. So I'm not saying that I called this by any means, but certainly the both of them showed potential at that point. Super tight match there in Nottingham, 7-6, 7-6 for Pliskova, showing her head for the big moments and the way her serve can pick her up so many cheap points when it matters and really give Barty a little breathing room. The catch with that match is the fact that it was Barty's first WTA event back since her break from the sport. So I'm sure you've heard it mentioned ample times on commentary. Barty was successful junior. She won the junior title here in, I think, I'm not going to say the year, it might have been about 2012. Can't remember, maybe even earlier than that. But anyway, Barty at the age of 15 won the Wimbledon juniors event, and she was doing really well on the senior tour. She reached multiple Grand Slam finals with Katie Delacqua, and then the expectation just kind of got on top of her a little bit. She didn't like the attention. She wasn't enjoying herself as much. So she took about 18 months off from the sport, went and played cricket. I know a lot of you know this, but we're just filling in the gaps. And then she came back and she played an ITF event and then went into Nottingham, which is where I spoke to her and got this interview with her to catch up on where she'd been and why she'd done it. So that was, she'd come through qualifying. That was her first WTA event back on the circuit. And so for me, the fact that she was able to keep it that close is very impressive. And you have to ask yourself, 5 years on, with Barty having vastly improved in terms of experience and getting match play under her belt, if you could keep it that close then, how's it going to play out now? It's an interesting thing to consider. I do remember parts of how that match played out. Pliskova was serving very well. She was knifing the backhand slice. When you're sat courtside, you really get an appreciation of how low the trajectory of Pliskova's shots are. She was keeping her approaches really close to the net, and she was moving up the court a lot when it mattered, just taking the time away from Barty, doing so effectively, because she really did manage to get on top of Barty in that match when it mattered. But they've had a few meetings since then, one in 2017 in Wuhan. So Barty got the win there, and she turned the tables because she dominated the tie breaks there. 4-6, 7-6, 7-6 was the scoreline. 2018 US Open fourth round. Now, that's the last time that Pliskova made a Grand Slam final. And in fact, the only previous where she was playing some of the best tennis of her career there, lost to Angelique Kerber in 3 sets in the final showdown. It was 6-4, 6-4 for Pliskova there. Again, I think that the courts at the US Open were traveling a bit faster, which goes with the narrative that a faster court should favor Pliskova's pace and the way she's able to utilize that. So that's interesting. But what's more interesting is that Pliskova hasn't had a win over Barty since. They faced off 3 times. Barty's won them all. 2019 Miami, which Barty went on to win, 7-6, 6-3 for Barty in the final. I actually did a preview and prediction for that match on this channel, and you can check me on this, but I believe I did say Barty in straight sets because I just don't have a lot of trust in Pliskova mentally when it comes to these bigger stages. So that was that for Barty, straight sets in the final. I've only just realized that the live chat is disabled on this video. I've just had a notification, so I apologize for that. I don't know what would have been different in the settings. I'm sorry that you can't chat amongst yourselves, but when I do the men's final preview and prediction later, I'll change that. So by all means, after this video is finished, leave a comment and let me know your thoughts ahead of the final and who you think will win. Sorry, I messed up there. But 2 more wins for Barty, the WTA finals, semi-finals in 2019, 4-6, 6-2, 6-3 for Barty there, coming from a set down, and came from a set down again in Stuttgart a few weeks ago. Quarterfinals on clay, 2-6, 6-1, 7-5 for Barty. Now, it's very interesting looking at that head-to-head because the more time has gone on, the more Barty has been able to come on top of some tight moments when these two have faced off against each other. So really interesting on that front because, as I say, a big thing for me with Barty in recent years is how she hasn't been able to handle opportunity. Even in the preview video for this event, when I called Barty to win the whole thing, I remember flagging her 2 most recent appearances at the Australian Open, where she faced first off Sofia Kenin in the semi-finals in 2020, and then Karolina Mukova in the quarterfinals this year. And both times, winnable opportunity, a player that she had more experience than, and she got tight. She didn't have the follow through on the forehand. She didn't have the control of her shots. Her serve let her down. Haven't seen that from Barty this tournament, which is really positive for her, but no stage is bigger than a final. As the results suggest, no player at the moment poses more of a threat than Pliskova. And it remains to be seen how Barty will handle that. Now, I haven't taken a deep dive into the numbers as I would have liked for this match because I didn't know whether I was going to get to film this video, but I have had a look at what I consider some of the key statistics because with it being a grass court and with the roof potentially being closed as well because the weather is bad in Wimbledon, who's surprised, but it is. That could make the serves a really important factor. Indeed, it's kind of been a key factor in the last two finals because Serena Williams' first serve deserted her, and that was that. The Kerber and Halep just got on top of her as a result. So Pliskova's service numbers have just been sky high. Her win percent on her first serve, as I've already said, is kind of 70s and 80s all the way through. But when it comes to the win percent on the second serve, I think I wrote this down. I'm not, but it's also pretty high for Pliskova. Barty, in comparison, her first serve percentage has been below 60% of first serves landed since the third round, which initially might make it look like an opening for Pliskova, but the thing about Barty is that she's so good with that second serve. She really went for it against Kerber. She took her chances and was very much aware of the way that Kerber would be trying to get on top of those second serve returns and responded to it by really being brave with that delivery. I mean, let's boil it down here. So Barty is hands down the best player on tour at the moment in terms of the way she handles herself and in terms of the way she performs across the board. Grass courts, hard courts, clay courts, she's there, she's a contender. Her form and her ability is not dependent on one particular surface, so that makes her really tough. But also just everything she has going on in her game, you know, the serve and the versatility of it, the backhand slice, which she absolutely knifes and which she can get into play with control, whether she's on the stretch or whether she's dictating that shot. The forehand is potent and she on the 1-2 punch. Pliskova is probably having a step up on Barty in just two departments here of the physical game. Her serve, because you know, it's lethal. She hits so many aces, has a high first serve percentage throughout this tournament, whopping service numbers, and her backhand, because the one hole in Ashleigh Barty's game is that two-handed backhand. The thing is, in those two departments where Pliskova probably has a step up, what Barty doesn't have in terms of power with her serve, she makes up for with that versatility, with her ability to deliver when she's break points down, and she saved a lot of break points this tournament, with her ability to go after the second serve. So what Barty doesn't have in terms of pace, she has in terms of composure and placement and precision. And then on the backhands, yeah, she doesn't have a great two-hander, and yeah, her two-handed passing shot, it's not really present, but she protects it because she's got that brilliant backhand slice and because she's got that super forehand, and because the rest of her all-round game is so good, she makes sure that she doesn't have to use that shot. So a big question for Pliskova coming into this match is, how do I find Barty's two-handed backhands? Now, a big option for her would be to move in behind the serve, because that serve is going to get her right on top of a few rallies, and if she serves into the backhand and approaches into the backhand, she's going to hope that she gets some easy putaways or that she draws errors from Barty. The danger then is that the backhand slice from Barty is going to come back at her, and that's going to force her to get low. As well as Pliskova has played on the back foot recently, she's not yet faced a player with anywhere near as much versatility and ability to change the spins and the trajectory on the ball as Ashleigh Barty. It's just not happened. I mean, it's very similar to Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova's run at Roland Garros all the way through. She'd had quite a nice draw for a Grand Slam, and she came up against Barbora Krejcikova, who, like Barty, has played a lot of doubles, has a lot of variation in her game, is capable from all areas of the court, and that won the day, even though Krejcikova was running on fumes. And that's the challenge that Pliskova has here, because as impressively as she did against Sabalenka, Sabalenka was just trying to beat the skin off the ball. Sometimes it seemed without a heck of a lot of strategy. She wasn't really slicing. She wasn't overly drop shotting. She was not changing things up as much as Barty will. And I think that backhand slice, as Pliskova tries to hit into that wing and tries to get the two-hander from Barty, that is going to be problematic for Pliskova, because she really struggles with getting low. She's a tall player, helps her on the serve, helps her with the power, does not help her when it comes to dealing with Barty's backhand slice, which has been an issue for every player that she's faced so far, because they hate having to move to get around it. They hate having to get low for it. Kerber was trying to get on top of rallies early, but if Barty knifed that backhand chip return back into play, she struggled to get the lift on the control on the shot that she needed, and that put her in some precarious situations in the first set. So if Barty is able to land that backhand slice with any kind of consistency, it could be a tough day at the office for Pliskova. Now, a lot of people will be looking at her service numbers and thinking that that is going to do a lot for her, particularly if the roof is on. And I acknowledge that if the roof is on, that is favorable to Pliskova. And if she can keep her mentality from the Sabalenka match, she's going to be a very tough opponent today. And she is going to get those cheap points on serve. And Barty is going to have to be patient. And she's going to have to really work her way through this match. But I would say, looking at the players that Pliskova has faced so far, that Barty is by far the better returner. Not because she's going to hit a lot of winners on that return, but because of the options she has to get that return in play. The big question here for me is, will Barty have the same respect for Pliskova and her level as she had for Kerber? Because Barty went into that semi-final against Kerber knowing that, yeah, this was a match that she was totally capable of winning, but if she lost it, Kerber's a multiple-time Grand Slam champion, former champion at Wimbledon, and in very good form. So that's not a disappointing loss for Barty if she loses it. Against Pliskova, she's facing an opponent that has never won a Grand Slam title, and a player that she knows that she has more depth than. She has more options than Pliskova at the end of the day. And can she handle that? So this is what I think this match is going to boil down to. If Barty plays her best tennis, if she's able to put all those options and all those tools out on the court, she wins this match, because Pliskova just can't compete with that in terms of versatility. Pliskova also struggled against Sabalenka with converting those break points. And even though Barty doesn't serve as fast or as big as Sabalenka, she finds her spots, and she does so relentlessly when she's facing breakpoint chances. And we saw what happened to Pliskova when she wasn't able to break through on those opportunities in the opening set. She faced one break point and she double faulted. So she did go away mentally for a moment. If Barty's playing at her best, she shouldn't allow Pliskova the liberty to rebound from that. So that's what it comes down to. If Barty plays her best tennis, she wins. But there's always the potential, even though she hasn't done in recent matches, that she does get a bit shaky and a bit nervous with the enormity of what's on the line. And the odds of that happening increases when you think about how difficult Pliskova has been to break this tournament. And with the cheap points that serve will pick up, the likelihood is that she will be able to keep the sets close. And if she does keep the sets close, can Barty hold her nerve the way she did in the tiebreak against Kerber when she was already up a set and she had breathing room and she had space to play with? Because Pliskova, if she continues the level that she's had through this tournament, she's not going to give Barty that kind of room to play with. And that is a big factor to take into consideration, particularly when you think about the conditions and the roof potentially being on and those kind of things that play into Pliskova's hands. But as much as Pliskova hits the bigger ball, it's on Barty's racket because she has the ability to move Pliskova around, to take her by surprise, to get her low, and to draw the errors. So I'm very tempted when I make this call to say 3 sets, because Pliskova did take a set against Kerber in that US Open final, because Pliskova has looked convincing recently and has handled herself mentally extremely well. She is the underdog in this match, and therefore, as much as there's a huge title on the line, it will probably be tougher for her to get tight than for Barty, because of the two of them, Barty has a lot more to lose in terms of who's expected to come out on top. Pliskova also has Session Bayern in her corner, and I've rated what Bayern's done on the WTA tour for a number of years. He was a hitting partner for Serena. He also helped Victoria Azarenka get some of her best results, Caroline Wozniacki. And, you know, I've heard different opinions on Bayern since then, but he's not used to taking L's, particularly in Grand Slam finals. He knows about this kind of environment. If there's anything that Bayern does well, he helps the mentality of his players and the way they approach matches, and that might have something to say about how Pliskova has handled herself in these latter stages. So she's definitely a threat, and I would not have called her to win this tournament at all from the outset, but now she's here with the path she's come through, with the conditions on the day, chances for Pliskova. But long story short, if Barty plays her best tennis, if Barty doesn't get tight, Barty wins. Do I have enough reasons to doubt that Barty will not be able to keep her composure? I don't think so. It might happen, but I've got to back Barty here. So I'm going to say Ashleigh Barty to win her maiden Wimbledon title. And, you know, she's had a lot of experience in slam finals, because it's not just been singles, it's been doubles as well. There have been patterns recently. Simona Halep and Garbine Muguruza both won the French Open and then went on to win Wimbledon for their second slam the following year. Didn't have Wimbledon last year, so technically it's the following year for Barty. So Barty to win this, I am tempted to say in 3 sets, particularly with the way their recent meetings have played out and with the way Pliskova is serving, and to allow room for nerves. But I feel like I do that a lot in slam finals, and actually a number of the recent slam finals have been straight sets finishes. So if Barty gets on top of the first set, she probably wins this in 2. So I am going to take a leap with it, as much as I know that Pliskova is a threat and able to win this. I'll say Ashleigh Barty to win Wimbledon 2021 and to do it in straight sets. So thanks for those that tuned in live. I'm very sorry that you couldn't have your little chat in the live chat, because I messed up there and somehow that wasn't enabled. But I'll sort that out for later today, when hopefully this evening I'll be back to preview the men's final between Novak Djokovic and Matteo Berrettini. So apologies for messing up here, but hopefully you'll forgive me and come back later if you're free. But by all means, leave a comment once this video is wrapped up and live and ready to watch back, and give your opinions for this final, what you think the key factors will be, who you think will come through. And I'll wrap up there, because we've been going for half an hour plus, which is so typical of me. Thank you very much for watching. Enjoy the final, and I will see you next time.